If you handed me Endless Legend 2 without telling me it was early access, I'd never know. Well, aside from the giant welcome to early access screen. But honestly, this already feels like a complete experience. It looks good, it runs surprisingly well, and most importantly, it doesn't feel like any other 4X I've ever played. From world-shaping events, hero companionship, and deep lore, to the warmongering insect and plant-robot hybrid factions, this is a game that will definitely keep you engaged for just one more turn, and not in that busy work kind of way. So in this video, I wanted to share my first impressions of Endless Legend 2, why I'm already hooked, and a couple of specific notes about early access. I did receive a key to play this one before launch, so a big thank you to Amplitude and Hooded Horse for that. Endless Legend 2 has been one of the most anticipated strategy launches of the year. After a short delay to add a bit more polish and improve onboarding for players, the game hits early access on September 22nd, but this isn't just a stripped down skeleton or beta branch lacking features. The developers wanted it to feel playable from the start while they layer in new content, balance, and polish. After playing multiple sessions with multiple factions, I can say this goal has been reached, as it does feel like a mostly complete game, outside of some placeholder text here and there and a couple other features I'll talk about later. I should also mention, I'm not a die-hard 4X veteran. I jump in and out of the genre, and a lot of these games feel samey and don't always stick with me, but Endless Legend 2 pulled me in and was refreshing right away. Even as a more casual player, I keep finding myself wanting to go back. Now, if you've played the original Endless Legend, you know it carved out a cult following for its unique factions and rich world building, a tradition that continues here, as well as its ties and overarching narrative across all of the Endless games. If you haven't played it, however, the good news is you can still jump right in and uncover the mysteries and lore of the world with no problem. Each faction is well explained, with a select screen breaking down their backgrounds, special traits, and overall goals. As someone who didn't know much of the previous story and connections, it almost felt like discovering the planet for the first time right alongside my leaders and hero characters. But it's not just a pretty map either. One of the first things that jumped out to me is how alive it all feels. Tidefalls are the big events and main mechanic that facilitates this. Massive monsoons that rock the ocean planet you're on, bringing changes, uncovering resources, and exposing new land when the ocean recedes afterwards. Suddenly, what used to be an impassable stretch of water becomes a new path or a fresh cluster of resources. These environmental shifts make you adjust your strategy in real time and change how you think about expansion and defense. Not only that, but the pull of the tides enrages the local minor factions, turning them more aggressive during the monsoon. However, battle rewards and resource caches around the map are increased as well. While it's a great time to scavenge all the extra resources popping up, you have to watch your path a bit unless you're willing to fight anyone and everyone, including some specific stronger monsters you may have never seen before the monsoon. These tidefall events happen multiple times a game and completely change the feel of the world, with dark rain, foreboding music, and a more on-edge, aggressive vibe for a short time. The size of the map and settings can be set to make them happen sooner or later, but for me, I love how it changes up the pacing and stops you from getting too comfortable and autonomous in your grand strategy management routines. Once the tides pull back and the ocean recedes, you may find dungeons, fortresses, or rifts occupied by enemies that weren't there before, opening up even more opportunities for combat, plunder, and loot to be found. Discovery is really a constant ongoing thing because of this mechanic, and makes me want to actually do it rather than just set my units to auto-explore. But all of this, the storms, shifting terrain, and monsters that come crawling out during the tidefall, wouldn't mean nearly as much if the factions themselves weren't just as distinct and dynamic. And that's where Endless Legend 2 truly shines, because just like the world itself keeps surprising you, the factions play in ways that feel completely different from one another. Each has their own backstories, notable characters, and decisions to be made, with effects that ripple out in the short and long term of your playthrough. It's a big shift from most 4X games I've played, with a focus on not only the core empire management, diplomacy, and combat, but also an evolving narrative that asks you to make choices with strategic and story implications. Special events and locations pop up around the map as new characters and storylines are fleshed out right alongside the other major factions building their empires and interacting with you too. there's always something going on. Paired with the tidefall monsoons and map expansion, this does a lot to eliminate the typical 4X mid and late game slowdown problem the genre faces. Pretty much all of the gameplay that you see here is from the Last Lords, a chivalrous, kind of noble Necron type of race, with cursed suits of armor they're tied to and a need for the magical substance dust to survive. Draining the essence of the living fuels resurrection for more powerful primordial lords, all a part of their dark past and quest to change their destiny. I love these guys. Let me know in the comments what your favorite faction is from any strategy game. Do you like unique and different, or tried and true classics? There is a mix of both here, with playstyles for every form of victory and civilization that you might want. The all-devouring hive mind of the necrophage is a war machine that's an absolute menace to everyone. The Last Lords revolve more around the dust economy, while the Tahuks are reptilian beings that rely on a blend of faith and science. Aspects are a unique mixture of robotics and coral plants who are more diplomatic but still able to fight. Lastly, the well-rounded kin of Sheridan are conquest-minded but lean a bit more towards fortifications and defense. Each of these societies have individual traits and units, as well as special modifiers and mechanics, like the necrophage ability to build burrows and travel quickly around the map. The cherry on top is all of the different narrative and strategic possibilities these individual modifiers and mechanics open up. That's the real highlight for me. Each race can be used to approach the game or even similar objectives in unique ways, and that goes double for playing against them as well. 5 factions are what's currently available, with at least one more known to be on the way. However, what I'm excited about is the ability to create a custom faction, seen here on the menu, but not quite added to the game just yet. If that sounds like too little variety for you, don't worry. I've already lost count of the amount of minor factions and different NPC races around the map that you encounter and can recruit units from. There is a ton. Heroes also add some personality and variety to the mix, with a surprisingly deep system built around them. Classic mechanics like skill trees, stats, and inventory management are there, offering plenty of customization on their own, but also friendship and companion buffs, with a haven that your heroes can build for themselves when they hit level 5. Notably, your heroes can also gain a nemesis, which I think is pretty cool. I even encountered a side quest or two that incorporated these systems and my heroes directly, making them feel more like actual characters in the story that I was adventuring with. That does make losing them in a battle hurt just a bit more, but they don't die permanently and can be resurrected. Even better, you're not stuck with certain heroes for each playthrough. You have a list of them to choose from and recruit among a variety of classes and skills, allowing for deeper customization and synergy with your troops and playstyle. The depth here really surprised me, and in the best way possible. Heroes take on leadership roles in combat as well, with dungeons and fortresses only being accessible to parties led by a hero. These are challenging, loot-filled points of interest scattered around the world that generally have a stronger enemy army with a hero or leader unit of their own waiting inside. It's one of the best ways to get new equipment and resources, but can definitely lead to major casualties if you're not careful. That's a good segue as any into the combat. Traditional hex-grid turn-based tactics, where positioning, terrain, and special abilities all come into play. The battles take place on the large world map, so impassable tiles like hills and mountains can create choke points or cut off your units from reinforcements if they get stuck having to travel all the way around. I learned that lesson the hard way many times. In fact, one battle felt like an easy win until half my troops got stranded on the wrong side of a hill, and by the time they managed to move around it, I had lost a hero and another batch of frontliners. Painful lesson for sure, but it made me watch my positioning that much more going forward. Most encounters feel like a fast-paced, skirmish-style battle as opposed to a long, drawn-out slugfest, but personally, I think that complements the feel and pace of the rest of the game. Endless Legend 2, like most 4X games, isn't built purely around combat, and I know some players don't even want to partake in that, so a snappier, straightforward battle system is best. Compare that to something like Civilization, where combat can feel clunky and often drags out wars much longer than they feel like they need to be. Here it's much more streamlined, Quick fights that keep the flow of conflict and empire management going without slowing down the entire game to a grind. Additionally, there's an option to manually command your troops or just have a battle instantly calculated and resolved. This gives options for both kinds of players. Strategic minds can manually play it out with meaningful positioning, hero control, and turn-based tactics, while players who prefer the management or macro playstyle can zip through fights without breaking their stride. The only exception to this are the dungeons and fortresses, which require manual control in battles. I actually love that though. It gives a little bit of a dungeon crawler vibe, mixed with the higher stakes and risk-reward factor of clearing out the tougher enemies inside. Combat might not be the focus of Endless Legend 2, but it feeds perfectly into the bigger picture of exploration, hero progression, and how your faction's empire grows. At the end of the day though, this is still an early access title, so there are a few things to note. Currently, there's no multiplayer mode and no public roadmap laid out, which may sound like a red flag to some people. However, the developers of Endless Legend 2 have been clear that multiplayer will be coming, and the roadmap is set to be announced shortly after launch once they've gathered some feedback from the initial wave of players. Amplitude plans to work closely with the community throughout development, and this will be the first step in that process. All of that gives me confidence because what's already here doesn't feel like some sort of unfinished experiment or a game without a clear direction. It's gorgeous, dynamic, and dripping with personality. So if this is just the start, I can't wait to see where it goes. It's safe to say, Endless Legend 2 has me hooked. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe for more strategy and tactics game coverage, and maybe even check out the channel memberships linked in the description if you would like to support more directly. Any and all of it is greatly appreciated. I'll see you in the next one.